This is the Frontline Focus Podcast, an experience dedicated to those on the front line of construction project sites, focusing on their development as the key to the construction industry's progress. This is Season 4. Our focus will be on the reality of AI, aka Artificial Intelligence. Specifically, how can AI make a positive impact on construction safety? In each episode, we will talk with a construction industry professional to hear their thoughts on how to shift the frontline focus on what artificial intelligence is and what the use cases are for AI to be used by the construction workers.
Well, here we go again, Gabe. It is so fun right now having these conversations about artificial intelligence in the construction industry. We actually got two more amazing humans that want to talk to us about what they're doing, what they're seeing, and we're going to have a little fun today. And Gabe, I got to be honest, I'm jumping the shark. We're trying to record a podcast with four humans. I'm at an airport. It's pouring down rain. Hope everything's going to work out. You're at your home office. We got the guys with us. How are you doing today, sir?
Oh, we got to just go with the flow, man. You're in the airport. This is part of startup life. If you're not in an airport, if you're not constantly changing things, mixing things up, and rolling with the punches, what are you doing? Yeah, I'm excited. We got two awesome guests on here from an incredible company that I'm excited to dig into. One thing I'll say as before we dive in, so AI is the focus of this season. And I think the thing that excites me the most about AI for construction is typically viewed as the laggard for innovation on the software front, not on the hardware front, but on the software front. And I'm curious to see, and I think I'm starting to see it as we go into more and more of these interviews, can construction either leapfrog or completely catch up to the rest of the world in the innovation front on software with AI kind of powering that. And I think I'm seeing the glimpse of that being possible with kind of the buy-in from the industry at the executive level, all the way down to the field level worker in how they're interacting with AI. So excited for the talk, but let's start by introducing our two guests, Brandon Milner and Ezequiel. Ezequiel, you're going to have to pronounce that last name for me.
Oh, Machabanski. They could just call me Easy.
Okay, easy. But yeah, let's start with a couple intros. Brandon, start with you. Tell us about you and your role with Ellis Don.
Yeah, sure. Well, Gabe and Rob, pleasure to meet you and spend a bit of time with you. I've been at Ellis Don now for just over 4 years. I'm the CIO, which is really a fancy way of saying that I oversee all of the technology and digital projects and platforms that we use here at Ellis Don, both for our corporate offices as well as for our project teams. So it's an exciting role. It's an awesome company to work for, very forward thinking, and it's given me the opportunity to work with an incredible team of technologists and companies like yourselves out there in the ecosystem to be able to bring in these technologies into our environment, helping not only grow our digital maturity at Ellis Don, but also, help our project teams with very niche and specific technologies that are required and keep us ahead of the industry and the ever-changing landscape that, now we have AI and now we all have to rush and keep up with that. So my role is pretty multi-incumbent, everything from cybersecurity to IT operations, to running, construction technology pilots like we're working with yourselves, Gabe, at Salas.
Thanks, Brandon. Easy, over to you.
Over to me. So formerly Ezequiel, aka Easy in the company. I'm the vice president of Insights and Analytics, which basically is code for data and AI. My team leads pretty much every data project from the back end all the way up to actually sometimes building a UI for the AI that we're either capitalizing on or developing in-house. I joined Ellis Don slightly over 2 years ago. And in my previous life, I were actually working in financial services. So I worked for a data company that primarily packaged data and quantitative models along with signals and sort of package that and commercialize it to asset managers and stuff like that. So transitioning from financial services to construction, particularly, which you alluded, gave earlier, that it's sort of a lagger in terms of tech adoption. I saw a huge amount of opportunity, but Ellis Don is actually at the forefront. So it's quite challenging, but at the same time, it's actually a great opportunity because most of the workflows that we sort of engage with, they're more deterministic. So instead of the partner from working within a random walk to more deterministic workflows. So it's actually great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for that intro. So before we get into some of the AI conversation, Ellis Don is different. I've spent a lot of time now, both on the construction side when I ran the window installation company to now software where I'm now working with companies across North America. When I look at the companies across North America, everyone's trying to, at least the ENR 200, they're all trying to put this innovative front on or trying to buy into innovation. They have CIOs, they have innovation leaders, everything else. But when we went through the accelerator program with Ellis Don, it really was different in the way that Ellis Don approaches innovation and software in construction. I have never seen an owner so bought into the software and innovation front in a construction company before, to the point where they believe the survival of the business is at stake if they don't win in the innovation and software front. So, Brandon, maybe can you explain to us the magnitude in which Ellis Don has invested in being an innovative leader in construction?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to claim that it's all me, but I inherited this you know, from a position of really, I want to say 20 years ago. Jeff Smith, who was the former CEO of Ellis Don, really saw this opportunity that, if we were going to own our own domain and control our own destiny as it pertains to our technology stack and our data and our own environment, we would need to build a lot of the things ourselves. So, we were the first general contractor, as far as I know, in the industry, but definitely in Canada, to build our own accounting platform 20 odd years ago. And that sort of dovetailed into building out our own project management platform. So a lot of the folks in the industry use Procore as their project management platform of choice. We built our own, and we have a team that builds, manages, and runs this platform for us. And as a result of that, that's given us an incredible opportunity that probably not everybody saw 20 or 15 years ago, to now be in a position to leverage alternative technologies and alternative data sets that we could then go on to build other platforms with. And, Ellis Don, we definitely, we live by our values. And one of our values is entrepreneurial enthusiasm. And really what that articulates into is we should be the controllers of our own domain. So hire smart people, let them run with things, let people try things, obviously in a controlled and secure environment, but engage technology, engage all these new platforms that are coming out with caution, but also with meaningful engagement. So, Gabe, when you were part of the accelerator program, that was an idea that was born 3 years ago of how do we reach out even further to the rest of the industry and welcome this technology boom that's happening. Construction, I would say, is a very guarded and careful and risk-averse industry, and people are not always that willing to share and to be open to collaborate, specifically when it comes to the word data. People feel very guarded around sharing, collaborating, exposing others to their what we call our secret sauce. But you can do that, and I think we've gained a lot of success in doing that because of the foundation that was built 15, 20 years ago, where we're not scared to engage others because we have a very interesting and robust cybersecurity framework and governance. So we've built a lot of moats around our data and around our environment, which allows us to have the fortitude to be able to bring in other companies while not being scared to be breached or have our data leaked or stolen or copied. It's a journey that will never end, as our VP of operations told me this morning. But it does mean at least we can start to play and to experiment and to partner with companies that allow us as a company to grow, but also give smaller companies an opportunity to expand into the market. And often what happens is finding these nuggets of gold in a rock are very difficult to find, because it's difficult to know who's going to be the winner and who's going to be the loser. And when we pilot and when we look at our Contech ecosystem, we're not looking at it through the lens of how do we make money and exit. We're looking at it through the lens of how does it help accelerate rapidly our adoption of tech on our sites, but also give our PMs, our soups, our CMs good, solid, foundational technology that they need. And that's sort of woven in between the DNA of our entire organization. Even if you take technology out of the conversation, it's kind of everything we do at Ellis Don is that we're not scared to try things. We're not scared to experiment, to pilot, and see how things go, and judge accordingly. But then, most importantly, act in a timely manner. So, it's very difficult to start something, and it's always like, well, how did they get so big, or how did they they're all over the place. So, even working with you, Gabe, in the beginning it's a little slow, but then once we have the framework and the momentum going, it's sort of like lighting a
One
bush
foot
fire.
in front of the other.
One foot in front of the
One foot
other,
in front of
and
So,
it's
Brandon, one thing, Easy, I put you on mute just for now, just because your audio when it comes in. So whenever you want to chat, just unmute yourself and jump in. But there's that background noise. So Brandon, I remember at the accelerator, it was a great experience. And the last part of it is we actually fly in. I think there was 10 or 12 companies finalists, and we meet. It's like 4 days of just engaging with all the executives and senior leaders and field teams from Ellis Don. And you came on with a panel discussion at one point and just opened it to anyone to ask questions. And you described the kind of what Ellis Don is doing. And I remember asking you, and at the time I didn't quite understand, but I said, how do we coexist? Because at first I thought Ellis Don is here to just take over all software construction. And how do we coexist as a startup? Are you just going to take us out? But what I've learned to understand, and this is my take on it now, and I'd love to get your guys' perspective, see if I've got it right, or if anything needs to be adjusted here. You almost look at this as the same way that construction works. Ellis Don is like the system of record, being the general contractor. And I view the software move that you're doing as like you guys want to own and be that system of record. But just like construction, you can't do it all. And you need incredible partners like subtrades to power your vision. And whether they're plugins or platforms, we view ourselves as a platform, but we're not the system of record for construction. I view project management as the system of record for construction. And so, am I right in the sense that your vision is to own that system of record, to make sure the data that you need to power the vision to be successful flows in properly to that, but you're looking for the best-in-class partners to power the other parts of that? Or am I missing something there?
So I'll just say, no, you're not missing anything there, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. But then I'll let Izzy give his comments around that.
Yeah, Advocate, that's a very good point, right? Because we're not here to sort of build every solution possible. Instead of the product that you take to market from Sal's perspective, I think it's a great way to demonstrate that, right? Because you sort of centralize workflows related to safety particularly. And as we continue to work with different groups across Ellis Don, then we have the ability to capture your data and other groups' data and really build mature, scalable, and robust machine learning models. A great example is to combine your data sets with predictive maintenance on equipment, right? Which has a high correlation with safety incidents. So that's a great way to actually show how we can collaborate when necessarily need to build every solution out there, because we can't be the best at everything, right? So we sort of have to zoom in and look at the products and the data sets that we want to champion internally versus what's out there already in the market and deliver great value. And because of your particular solution is so slick and optimal, right? That drives adoption. And when you drive adoption, that drives the journey of our data sets, right? The ability to actually produce those data sets, those data points that we really need in order to leverage and build AI. So it's a perfect sort of partnership for us.
Easy, where are we in this journey? there's the data, there's the solving a problem, create a value exchange to start collecting the data, get adoption, and then there's the understanding on how to use data to actually have an impact. And I'll kind of simplify this a little bit. Google has, I think, the most data that they collect out of any other company in the world, but they use very little of it. Whereas Meta collects far less data, but uses almost 99% of it to have an impact on making money for them or whatever they're doing. We don't need to get into that. And so in the construction industry, or even if you look at it as Ellis Don, are we at the point where we're still just trying to figure out how to collect the data, get adoption in software to start pulling it in? Or are we past that point where now you've collected the data into a format, whether it's a data lake, a warehouse, whatever it may be, and now you're at the stage of saying, okay, now we have the data. What do we do with it? Because I think a lot of people think data is king, but they forget the point, like, what do you actually do with the data?
That's such a good point. Right. And I guess it depends on the data set and the problem you want to address internally, right? We actively work with SMEs, with subject matter experts across the Ellis Don to really understand their problems. And it's sort of a repetitive mode. What we do is we sit down with them, understand their problem statement, they did our journey, the systems they're actually using, understanding if some of that data has already been captured on our side in order to scope a proper solution for that particular problem, right? So we find that certain groups across Ellis Don or within Ellis Don, they're a little more advanced in terms of understanding the value behind the data itself, whereas other groups are sort of struggling a bit, and that's where we come in and sort of try to help them out in terms of squeezing or maximizing the value, the utility of those data sets. And ultimately, as we sort of take care of our data lakes and our data infrastructure, we have the ability to assess, with the help from SMEs, to understand how we can actually combine different features from different data sets. How do we actually use multimodal AI to actually solve problems, and not only for one group, but for the entire set of enterprise needs. So I think that's very key, right? The ability to not only, and so as sort of the data experts come in and really assess the data sets that we have on hand and what they have, but it's also understanding from their perspective, what are the sort of the gaps, right? The problems in what they're trying to execute on a daily basis. And sort of that's a win-win for us.
Yeah, it's so interesting because, I mean, like I said, with Meta and Google, some of it is just we're trying to solve a specific problem with software, but the data we collect from that doesn't always have value, right? It could just be something that we're collecting and it's like a data point that we all tote about or brag about, but then it's like take a step back and say, okay, well, what what are you actually going to do with that data point? And this is something that we are constantly thinking about at Salus, because we have an incredible amount of data that we collect from the field. I mean, Ellis Don, once you guys roll out across all your sites with us, I think there's going to be about 15 to 20,000 people a day putting data into Salus, because we get the field users interacting with safety. But not all those data points are actually valuable. We're in the process of figuring, okay, what data points do we collect currently for safety that can actually power a business, which ones don't? And then on the flip side, what can we start to introduce that actually can power the business in a different way? The long and the short of it is there things that you're trying to look at in the data that you're collecting today and like sparsing out, okay, what things that we're solving problems with software today that actually collect data that's not useful, some that are useful, and then how do we actually start collecting more data that's useful? Or am I making any sense to you right now? Or is this even a conversation you're having?
It's actually a great question, Gabe, and you were cut out there a couple of times. So let me just repeat the question back to you, just to make sure that I have a full understanding. But the question was, as you guys roll out, for example, across our different sites, how do we know which data points to actually consume and actually deliver real business value? Whereas maybe there's other data points that are very sort of factual in terms of ROI. So how do we actually decide which data points are which, and sort of define that data journey for the data sets that are actually collecting ROI? Is that the question? Did I frame that right?
Yeah, basically, yeah. How do you like do an analysis of what it is today, what's good, what's bad, and then how do you progress from there? Because if we believe that data is king in the future with AI, how do you merge the collection of data with the value exchange for the people entering it, I guess is the key, right? We can't just all of a sudden collect data that they don't even care about entering, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. So there's a pretty sort of robust exercise that we conduct internally. First and foremost, we engage the SMEs to understand what data points they want to see on dashboards or what particular signal from the data they want to extract in order to understand if a particular signal is trending the wrong way so they can update their strategies and rectify that wrong trending signal. And vice versa, if the signal is trending the right way, what do they have to do in order to support that, upward trending signal? That's one way to sort of look at it and understand, okay, so these are the data sets that will actually support the business. Whereas if we're not sure, then there's more technical ways to understand. Maybe you just built an unsupervised model to understand, are there actual features that are driving those signals, right, that are supporting that particular trend and that we want to start sort of capturing. And I'll give you a perfect example around our invoices for trades. Like, we receive unstructured sort of invoice from thousands of different subcontractors, and there's so many data points there, right? That what should we actually capture in order to, I don't know, put it in a structured data format so we can leverage it. And just looking at invoices, we're sort of extracting data points by vendor project and also understanding what commodities are being consumed on site. So we can compute greenhouse gas emissions, not only by area, but also by projects. And then those same data points that actually inform our cost forecasts and financial models as well, right? So that's one data source that we sort of repurposing for different applications. But it's all about sitting out with the SMEs to understand what data points they need. And then, of course, if there are additional data points that we're not sure, the SME is not sure. So how do we can actually, from a technical perspective, allow them to see the value of it? Perhaps, building on supervised models again, or, some other technique.
Hmm. That's really interesting. Brandon, you've been at Ellis Don just over 4 years now. How much of your focus has changed since AI has become so much more of a focal point for software and innovation? Is this something that you saw coming when you first came in, or is this something that you've had to really adjust the focus of kind of Ellis Don's strategic vision around this?
So a little bit of a yes and a no answer on that one, Gabe. When I first joined Ellis Don, I mentioned early on the chat that we've built out our own project management platform. So you can imagine over 15 years how much data we've collected. And similar to what you were saying, is like, that's great, but like, how much of it is good? How much of it is bad? Garbage in, garbage out, all the euphemisms that we become akin to using nowadays. So I was very curious to know, okay, well, we've got all this data. And I remember when Izzy joined it and he said, oh, we could do all these things with that data. And I'm like, okay, what? And then he was like, no, we could build out more products. I was like, and then what? He was like, and then we can be more efficient. I was like, and then what? And it kept going. It led me down the garden path to, well, how good is our data? How useful is our data? How clean is our data? So we employed a team to sort of go through this process of cleansing, viewing, and just taking a look at our data to see how usable it is for anything moving forward, particularly around artificial intelligence. So, because AI is only as good as the data set that you're working with it. Obviously, it's more complicated than that, but as a conversational point. So we went through the exercise of looking at our data, and we found that our data was about 80% usable, which was pretty impressive over 30 years or whatever, over 15 years of a lot of Excel spreadsheets, a lot of trying different things like that. So then the next step to that, Gabe, was like, okay, well, could we employ artificial intelligence onto our project management platform, which we call Gate 3? And the question could not be answered. So I was like, okay, we've got to look at use cases, like when would we use artificial intelligence and when we wouldn't, because AI is not needed for everything. So
Yep.
we actually I got the team to apply for some funding from the government through a super cluster out in Montreal called Scale AI. We applied for some matching program through Scale AI, and over 18 months we built out about 6 or 7 use cases purely employing AI. So looking at projects, things like project similarity, risk profiles, subcontractor risk mitigation. So when we look at something like project similarity, when we're looking at our procurement team, to save a lot of time, because AI, I think the beauty of AI is it's really just going to bring massive amounts of efficiency to our day-to-day jobs. But when we start a procurement or we want to apply to an RFP, the first thing is, well, you're never going to start from scratch. So let's look at projects that are similar to this project. Would we be successful? What kind of resources did we allocate to it? What kind of technology did we deploy to it, et cetera, et cetera? And we used AI to start to experiment to see, is it something that we even want to look at from an Ellis Don technology perspective? Or is it just a fad or a phase that is not pertaining to the construction industry? And what we found was obviously the positive thing, otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here talking about it, but that there was a very robust way that we could employ AI onto our data sets that we were collecting. At the time of collecting that data, we probably didn't know what we would be using that data for. We probably didn't know some of the use cases that would be born or fleshed out in the future, but we were still collecting all that data. And AI then gave us a massive opportunity to sort through all of that and find those use cases that pertain to a specific need of the business, like project similarity. No one would ever thought that anybody would care about it, but it ended up saving double-digit percentages of time for the procurement team to actually start to look at projects that were similar to projects that we've done in the past. And that kind of dovetails into your conversation with Izzy earlier, where how do you know, you're collecting all this data, and Salus is a great example. You're collecting thousands and thousands of gigabytes of data. We may not know now what we'd need that data for, but employing AI in the future, we could find use cases that we're like, great, we've got this data from Salus, and now we can dovetail that and merge it into another data set that we could then conglomerate into a product or service offering or some type of thing. So I'm not saying collect all the data you possibly can, because you're right, sometimes it just doesn't make sense. But being smart about collecting, standardizing, storing that data for some kind of potential future use is really where AI will come into its foray in the construction sector.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we're at the point right now where we're looking back to figure out what we've done to see what we can learn from. But which is important. Like you said, you have tons of data, and I have a question around that after. But then there's also the moving forward. How we build moving forward is going to change in the way in which we build to collect data, right? Now that we understand what AI can do more and more, are we going to change the things that we do day in and day out to collect data in a different way that can power us so much more effectively in the future, which is, I think, an incredible time to be a part of this industry at this time, to be at this forefront, right? It's really exciting. Brandon, you mentioned that you had 80% usable data, 20% was unusable. For you as a business, can you give me an example? What is usable data and unusable data? Just high level. Obviously, don't go into too much detail,
Yeah.
but what are some of the things that?
I can give you tangibles more so on what's unusable data. So, as an example, we collect an inordinate amount of tombstone data. So when I say tombstone data, I'm talking about names, email addresses, contacts, addresses, company info, stuff like that. Now, you can imagine collecting all this data from Excel spreadsheets, from emails, from platforms we've built. There's going to be a lot of duplication. Like we put there are two Gabe Geddes at Salus's, or we've misspelled Gabe's surname, or in this case, maybe Ezequiel Machabanski's surname, but we only need one. So about 20 or 25% of that data was like that, where it's just either duplicates, unusable, irrelevant, nobody really cares about it. Having 75 or 80% of usable rich data in my mind means things like, our costing, our bidding information, our scheduling information, our estimating information. Those kind of things are extremely useful and in the context of this conversation, usable data to then do other things with. I make it sound very easy. Oh, we cleaned up our data. That process took about a year. It's not a trivial amount of time to take to clean it up. And I'm so glad that we did this and we carved a special team out just to do that. And that's all they were doing, knowing that in a year's time, the fruits of their labor would come to bear, which now they have, because now Izzy has a rich data set and a data lake of stuff that he can then use to build platforms or dashboards or more predictive and apply AI on to become more predictive, scheduling, estimating, cost forecasting, accounts payable, things like that. So it's a very, you've got to start at ground zero sometimes, unfortunately, Gabe. But if you don't, we've met a bunch of folks out there, and we've launched this new initiative called Building Digital, which is sort of a division of our Ellis Don Digital group that's trying to go out there into the market to help elevate the digital maturity of others. And the first thing we get when we speak to people as a broad stroke comment is we need AI. But what they don't realize is they actually need to fix their data before AI. Otherwise, it's you're kind of always trying to fix this broken car that you never know if it's going to break down or not. So, but the problem is people want to go and they want to rush forward. I'm just very lucky that we took the time to just plan it out, build a solid foundation of our data sets to then employ AI in, as opposed to let's do AI and we'll fix it while the plane's flying.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because so many people at an executive level, their initiative is like AI. We got to be AI forward. Let's go now. But if your data isn't good, it's like raising a child with terrible parents. What's going to happen to that kid, right? Like, they're learning from something. You got to make sure that that's clean before they learn. Izzy, when you look at kind of this initiative at a industry level and maybe at an Ellis Don level, where are the biggest gaps right now to success with AI through the data lens? Is there gaps? Like, is the field not collecting enough data? Do you get enough from the office? Is the office, and where are you seeing, when you kind of lay this out at an Ellis Don level and then at an industry level, where the biggest gaps to our best opportunity for success lie?
Oh, that's a great question, Gabe. And I think that's the biggest sort of gap doesn't come from actually data. It comes from change management, particularly in construction, right? Construction folks, that they tend to be extremely skeptical about data and their own sort of processes and workflows. So one thing, maybe perhaps going back to Brandon's point about having good quality data, at Ellis Don, we have a pretty strong entrepreneurial spirit, right? So we have perhaps our civil division across the country, perhaps doing, different workflows for the same sort of task. So I think that they're actually producing the data, and maybe it lacks standardization. But I think that the gap in construction particularly is the ability to convince the key stakeholders that they're actually part of the data journey. And if once they become part of that data journey and the data is standardized, they can actually see the upside way better than just working on silos, right? Or just working on a Excel spreadsheet. A great example is our scheduling data in Primavera 6 or P6, where we actually built an application so they can actually assign tasks outside P6. So we can clean this sort of a sandbox of clean schedules, which is a critical data set for construction, right? Because it informs different processes and different workflows. But yet again, I think that's the biggest challenge. It's not particularly the data sets in our sector. It's how to actually get the construction folks to really engage with companies like yourself and really become part of that data journey that ultimately nourish a much bigger system that we're trying to build internally at Ellis Don, which is grounded on this ontology, or for lack of a better explanation, a digital twin of our operations. I think that's where the sort of the gap or the problem is with not only Ellis Don, but I think for construction as a whole.
Yeah, that's a good point. We talk innovation, but we're in order to innovate, you have to be able to take a few steps back to take steps forward. And the industry is notorious to be, we're too busy for that, right? Or it's a fragmented space. Okay, one company's willing to do that, but will all companies on that job site take a pause, take a few steps back to innovate and move forward? To wrap things up here, I'll ask a question to you both. You can both answer it separately. For companies that could be smaller than you, same size than you, I think you are further ahead in than almost all companies I've come across in the way that you guys have invested in innovation on the software front. What would you recommend based on what you've learned to help companies that are further behind you in this journey not pay the dumb tax? Whether it's on the data side or strategic side, Brandon, maybe we'll start with you, Brandon. What would you recommend for people that are going through what's like last 4 years, something that you just like love to scream from the rooftops to the industry to help people learn? Because we're at the end of the day, we're all in this together. It's an industry that's so connected that the tide raises all boats, something like that. How do we
Yeah,
raise the tide,
I'm
Brandon?
glad, I'm glad you said that because I always mess up that quote, and it's always like
I've heard
rising
you.
tide rises all boats. I'm like, I think I said rises too many times there, but you get the idea. Without trying to like bash it to death, building digital, which the division which we started was created purely from that vein of let us help you work with others in the industry to engage, and don't be paranoid that everybody's out to steal your data or to steal your secret sauce. And always remember, at the end of the day, we're a construction company. We build things. We're not a company that has a SaaS platform that you could steal your IP and your code and your algorithms. That's only going to help you get more efficient, but it's never going to change the nature of what a construction company, a subcontracting company, an AEC or consulting company does. But it facilitates and helps you do things better. So, from shouting from the rooftops perspective, my ask to the industry really is just we need to work together. And, I've been at hundreds of conferences that everybody says the same thing, but nobody's actually prepared to take that first step. I think that would be my ask just generally to the industry is trust some of the partners in the industry, and try small, start off small. Don't boil the ocean. Don't chase all the proverbial shiny balls, but start with, I believe, your data. Make sure that your data is in a position that you can then build a future digital product platform, whatever it is, on top of that. And if you could go to a bunch of consultants out there and they can help you, and they could help you structure your data and fix it. But working with industry experts and people that have had the same battle scars as you, not only goes much quicker, but it actually helps alleviate some of the mistakes that are then going to be made if you don't come to people within the industry. So my strong recommendation is to work with partners like a Building Digital, even like a Salus, who has expertise around this field within your specific niche area and in construction. Be open to partnering, be open to collaboration. Obviously protect yourself, but at the end of the day, I think it's an important factor to know that we're not all trying to steal everything. We all want the rising tides rises all boats analogy, because as a general contractor like Ellis Don, we want all of our subcontractors to be at a digital maturity level that we're not up at night worrying about cyber issues or technology adoption issues. And the more people adopt on this front, the easier it is for us to move forward at a more rapid pace. You can't go from I'm using Excel to now I'm using agentic AI and, automating my processes through machine learning in a day.
Right.
You've got to start somewhere. So let us help you. Let the industry help you. Trust those partners that you've worked with or collaborated before, and try small. Just start off small, but try something. I feel like people suffer from analysis paralysis. They don't know. They don't want to take that first step.
Perfection over progress.
Yeah. And that's what we talked about that a lot, Gabe. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think the construction industry, as we do normally, like there's the industry influence and then there's the global influence, and everyone's looking at this global influence on AI and seeing what all these companies are doing to leverage AI. But construction also has to understand they are decades behind other industries in the way that they use software. And so they need to catch up to where they are to have the impact that AI has with the rest of the world industries. And that's the crazy thing about construction is we keep doing the same things, making the same mistakes over and over across all job sites, across all companies. Subs can attest to it the most. You see it mistake happen on one job with one company, the same mistake happens on another job with another company. And the end result is it's not a competitive thing. Everyone's losing money for the same mistakes. Why don't we collaborate more? Easy, what's your take? What would you like to share?
So my number one advice, particularly for mid to large size GCs or soft contractors, is as part of the innovation teams across the industry, we need to become better at storytelling. And let me explain what I mean by that. Time and again, we're perceived to be an overhead to operations, right, to the business, but we have the ability to produce equal value in terms of ROI to the rest of the groups, right? So until the industry doesn't realize that we are an equal partner in terms of delivering value, the necessary budgets are not sort of allocated. We're left with picking up maybe smaller use cases that provide marginal ROI. So we're sort of stuck in this vicious cycle of there's no real innovation because the business doesn't perceive us as an ROI generator. So I think that we should be better at storytelling and sort of capturing and crafting that message and delivering to C-level, right? We're very lucky at Ellis Don because our C-level actually listens to us, and we were able to craft that message and they understood it very clearly. So we're pretty much ahead of the curve. But I think that that's one advice that I should share with the rest of the industry for sure.
I think that's an incredible point, and I would say from my seat, it is the biggest blocker in innovation in construction on the software front is that executives look at software as a cost on top of the person. I use this example a lot, and I say it's you have to power the individuals like it's any other tool for them. Like you wouldn't get a carpenter to go build something with a hammer from Walmart, right? Like you're going to get them the best tools because it empowers them to do better. You wouldn't get them to use a handsaw to cut wood anymore because you'd be like, that's ridiculous. Get them the best skill saw, battery powered skill saw now. No issue. Because that is how we have to look at software. Now, not all software is built the same, just like all tools aren't built the same, but we have to it has to be looked at in the same light. And we could go on for hours about the ROI that can be created from this. But I think the value proposition and the ROI has to shift on the software front too. We keep presenting it as just hard copy to like getting rid of paper or time saving to a certain extent. And there's a much bigger story around software than that us as a software industry has to really get better at, like you said, storytelling. How does it connect the dots? How can you actually power an industry in a different way using software? Like you said, Brandon, Jeff, you guys are very fortunate. I think that's why you're different, is that Jeff saw this years ago as the only way to survive in this industry as it transforms. And you can see it day in and day out in the way that you guys operate. But that's a great way to end the podcast. Thank you both for your time. Incredible conversation. And yeah, thank you both for the time.
Thank you,
Awesome, Gabe.
Really
Thank you so much for the opportunity, man.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Frontline Focus podcast powered by Salus. If you enjoyed this episode, then please subscribe to our show on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Or better yet, leave us a comment on social media for us to hear your thoughts about this conversation around artificial intelligence for construction. Until next time, keep moving safety forward.